So yesterday, the playmaker, one of the great receivers of all time, the Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Dallas Cowboys. Michael Irvin remains relevant and interesting. So this past weekend, he was going to Cowboy games, and he was going to the Jake Paul Tyson fight, and Michael Irvin also went to the Colorado game. And there's been a lot of talk, and I think it's obvious if you're paying attention that McCarthy's out, and they're looking for a rock star as a head coach. Well, there's this guy named Deion Sanders, the former Dallas Cowboy, who has bet on himself his entire life. Jackson State, Colorado. As a player, he was bouncing around Falcons to Cowboys to Niners, and a very confident guy. So there's this feeling that Deion, although Deion said, "I'm not interested," would be in line to get the Cowboys job. And Michael Irvin was asked about that possibility.
If Jerry and the Cowboys up there round one and going to get Shedeur, if you want somebody to follow footsteps, you got Shedeur, you get Deion. I believe 100%, and I can tell you, good sources have told me that.
Okay, that made news. Now, Deion Sanders said, and I'll quote him, "Hey, I'm happy. I've got my kickstand down." You know what a kickstand is? I'm resting. It should be duly noted that kickstands are always temporary. They're not down forever. Somebody gets on that bike. And I am convinced if Dallas gets the number one pick, and I think they have a chance to, I think they're going to draft Shedeur Sanders and hire Deion Sanders as coach. The funniest response to this is, well, Dak has a no-trade clause. Yeah, so did Russell Wilson. You don't think Dak would waive that in 2 seconds if they drafted Shedeur Sanders? By the way, Aaron Rodgers, March 2022. Packers signed him to the biggest annual payment deal in the league at quarterback. By April of 2023, he was a Jet. Jimmy Garoppolo in 2019. Remember him? For about a minute, he was the highest paid quarterback. 2 years later, they drafted Trey Lance. Again, Russell Wilson had a no-trade clause. Nobody cares. Be good now. Jared Goff got a new deal. A couple years later, sent him to Detroit. Went and got Matt Stafford. Everything's negotiable. Everything in life is negotiable, but especially at quarterback. You think Dak's going to get special treatment? Russell Wilson didn't. Aaron Rodgers didn't. And they have trophies. That's the way the world works. There's other stories out today. The Jets are not going to remain in the Aaron Rodgers business. So I'll say it again. If Dallas loses the next 2 weeks, and they're a 10-point dog to the Commanders this week, they will lose. And if they lose to the New York Giants at home, and doesn't matter where it's at, Dallas gets hammered at home weekly. I think they're a front runner for the number one pick because the Jacksonvilles and the Tennessees have to play twice still. So those guys are going to win games. I think New England's going to win games. Cleveland's going to win games. I'm not sure Dallas does win another game if they lose on Thanksgiving next Thursday to the New York Giants. And to me, it's the only way to escape the current mess. Hire a rock star head coach and draft a rock star quarterback on a rookie deal. Because Dallas will probably have to pay a big chunk of Dak's contract. The Broncos did with Russell Wilson. And Russell can still play, and Dak can still play. But he'll be off his second surgery. Dak lost his mobility off the first surgery, and he is not good enough to elevate this roster. They need a rock star coach and a rock star quarterback. And as Michael Irvin said yesterday, he has it sourced, they could get Deion Sanders. I don't know why anybody would, the no trade clause. People waive stuff in their contracts all the time. Dak's not going to sit behind and be embarrassed on the bench, cameras on him every 30 seconds, Dak Prescott backing up the Dallas Cowboys. And there'll be a market for Dak. People may not want to pay for his contract, but by the way, there'll be no market for Russell Wilson. He's doing pretty well. There's always a market in a sport where a third of the teams are dreadful at quarterback. If somebody else is paying the money and Dallas will have to pay a lot of the money, somebody will take Dak. They're not going to take Dak in his contract, but they'll take Dak. Okay, so I thought this was interesting. So yesterday was the third installment of the college football 12-team playoff. Now, it's going to change over the course of time. But a lot of the favorites may not lose again before the playoffs starting December 20th. So the most interesting part of this, for years and years, cold weather teams, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, have complained, how come we always have to play the bowl games down in SEC territory? Well, the weather's better. As of this morning, if the playoffs started, Bama would have to go to Notre Dame. Georgia would have to play at Penn State. Ole Miss would have to go to Indiana, and somebody would have to go to Columbus, Ohio. All potentially -4 degrees and windy when the playoff starts December 20th. No more Miami, New Orleans, Citrus Bowl, Orlando. It would be the coldest game easily for any of those SEC athletes. And by the way, I do not think what I'm about to say is a coincidence. Do you know the 5 winningest teams in professional football in the last 20, 30 years? Cold weather New England, cold weather Baltimore, cold weather Green Bay, cold weather Pittsburgh, cold weather Philly, and throw in the Chiefs. You think well, how come there's no dome teams? How come there's no warm weather teams? Because cold weather teams are fine going into warmer weather. Go look at Tua, who played high school football in Hawaii and then went to warm weather SEC. He is horrible under 48 degrees. He's 0-6, and that's 48 degrees. What if it's 12? What if it's windy? I mean, Tua is a completely different quarterback. When he plays over 48 degrees, he's a Pro Bowler. 100 passer rating, 70% completion. Under 48 degrees, he's Brock Osweiler, but shorter. I mean, he literally is a backup. So, and you say, oh, it doesn't make that big a deal. I think it's a 5-point swing. And by the way, it doesn't mean Georgia can't go up north and win. I'm not saying that. But it matters, and it matters a lot. Because when you're older, you've traveled to different regions. But when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're from a warm weather area, you haven't necessarily in your off time or vacation time gone to Kansas City, Green Bay, Buffalo, or Baltimore. So I'm not saying an SEC team couldn't win. But I will say it is in my life, it has been an advantage that SEC teams, and they're very good and deserve all the respect, but they've often played their bowl games. I mean, I was looking this morning. Georgia in the last 6 years has played 3 bowls in Atlanta, 2 in New Orleans, and 2 in Miami. You don't think it's a little bit of an advantage not having to trail, having more fans there, the weather under control? I mean, that's now Oregon I don't worry about because Oregon plays in sloppy, wet weather, November 5th on. They'll be fine. They're actually built for warm or cold weather. They get a little of both. But that kind of jumped out to me. Joel Klatten, 1 hour. That kind of jumped out to me that I thought, for years the Big Ten fans complained about it. And a lot of years the SEC just had better players and better teams. But it's an advantage. People go look at the history of the L.A. Chargers, then the San Diego Chargers, when Dan Fouts and a stacked team had to go play in Cincinnati. Go ask Dan about that. It matters. Go ask Tua about playing in cold weather. I don't think it's a coincidence that even in pro football, the last 20, 30 years, New England, Green Bay, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Philly, Kansas City. And by the way, Josh Allen, in about 7 years, they're going to win 13 games a year. Buffalo will be in that group. That's the next group to be in it.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.